This is Coast to Coast AM with George Knapp.
Little Stevie Ray Vaughan welcoming us back to Coast AM. I'm George Knapp, and not only is the sky crying, there's a lot of stuff going on up there. UFOs, for example. I'll tell you, my first UFO book, the very first book I ever owned on this subject, and I've got probably 1,500 of them now, was something called UFO Contact from the Pleiades, written by Wendell Stevens and Lee and Britt Elders back in the late 70s. Someone gave it to me as a gift. It's a big coffee table-sized book. I don't know if you can even get it anymore, but it's filled with these incredible photos snapped in Switzerland of UFOs, crisp, clear, daylight photos, almost, you could say, too good to be true. And a lot of people believe they are too good to be true, but they're not true. I remember thinking back then, gosh, I looked at the book and could this be actual legitimate photos? Because if it is, it would seem to be, it would be covered on the news all over the world. I didn't know at the time exactly how things work in the UFO world and how the media treats UFO topics and things like this. Kind of naive in that regard, but I knew that this was really interesting, and I've held on to the book ever since. My guest tonight is Michael Horn. And he is sort of the official, authorized American representative for the Billy Meier case. The book I'm talking about, UFO Contact from the Pleiades, detailed and introduced the world to the story of Billy Meier, who has, even if he didn't claim to have had contacts with aliens, has had an amazing life. I had a chance to meet Michael Horn last summer. He came to town, a couple of Las Vegas businessmen, the Bax brothers, brought him to town for a dinner. I sat in on that dinner and had a conversation about the Billy Meier case. Wendell Stevens was there. I had the same kind of questions that many of you probably have about the case. We're going to get into it because little did I know, this is a matter after all these years that really inspires heated emotions among people and on both sides. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, George. It's nice to talk to you again. It's kind of after dessert, so to speak.
Give me, I'm sure most of our listeners know who Billy Meier is, but for those who don't, and for those who need a refresher, give me the thumbnail sketch of who this guy is.
Sure. Billy Meier is a soon-to-be 71-year-old Swiss man. He has one arm. He claims that since he was a 5-year-old boy back in 1942 in Switzerland, that he's been having voluntary face-to-face meetings with human extraterrestrials from a distant star system some 500 light years from Earth.
You call this the most important story in all human history. A bit of hyperbole?
Well, I actually say it's either the biggest hoax, or the biggest, most impenetrable hoax, or the most important story in human history. I don't see anything really in between.
You don't think it's a hoax, though?
I don't. I would say at this point I'm absolutely convinced that the case is authentic, that it's real, but I always say that I cannot prove everything in it because there's certain time factors involved in some of the information. Everything that I've been able to check has come up solid.
You know, I didn't realize after all these years that people are still so intensely interested in this thing, but all week I've been getting emails from people who've had encounters with you and have had, and they tell me various stories, they have various objections, and you're familiar with those, and we'll go through them one at a time.
Sure.
But can you explain to me in general why you think that it is still such a heated topic among those who follow such issues?
Yeah, you know, I will try to put it this way. There's certain things in life that upset people. You know, when I was growing up, I was told that we don't speak about politics and religion. It wasn't in my house. That was not a problem in my own house, but it was societally some kind of a little mantra. We don't speak about politics and religion because people seem to get so upset about those things. I think with the Meier case, because it presents some very uncomfortably real information and even to skeptics, there's something here that bothers them deeply because it hits a note inside that causes us to confront all of our belief systems, our religious beliefs, our sense of who we are, where we are in the universe, what life and universe and God and all the rest of this is, and it does it in a way that is very different than any other source of material that I personally have ever come across.
You know, have you spent much time with Meier himself? I know you're the authorized American representative, but it's not clear from what I've read of your stuff whether you've spent a lot of time with the guy.
Well, yes, I'll just say that you and I were introduced to the case in the same way through the wonderful book published by Wendell and the elders. And I've had the opportunity to visit with Billy 8 times in the last 7 years and spend time with him, you know, personally and talking and getting to know him and actually even trying to trick him, to be perfectly honest with you, trying to see if he was faking. And I had my own way of doing that. And if you want, I mean, it's a kind of a weird story. You can tell me if you want me to hold it or to lay it on.
Yeah, why don't you hold that for a couple of minutes?
Yeah.
We'll cover another thing for a minute or two here, and then we'll go to a break. I just wanted to know, before we go to that break, did you have the same reaction that I did when you saw the book? Oh, this is too good to be true. These photos are too good to be true.
No. For me, my first impression was, this is real, this is true. Now, of course, that isn't what I based my conclusions on, that feeling alone, you know, 30 years later. But I did have that sense that this was genuine, and it triggered in me some senses of remembrances or of dreams and things when I was a kid. It just resonated, and I had to know more.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll go through Billy Meier's life. We'll start looking at some of the types of proof that you've brought up, and we'll talk about a new documentary film that you're releasing, The Silent Revolution of Truth. Welcome back to Coast AM. I'm George Knapp. My guest tonight, Michael Horn. He's just put out a new film, a documentary called The Silent Revolution of Truth. And I guess we're sort of the debut for it. We're talking about it. We can't show it on the air, of course, on the radio waves, but I watched it today, and it's Michael, it's a beautiful film.
Thank you.
It is. It's whether or not you believe it or don't believe the Billy Meier story, it's a great film. And I'll tell you what I like the best is you have an extra added attraction where you have the skeptic on, and you go through the arguments one at a time. We'll be doing the same sort of a thing a little bit later, but it's good that you address some of the most pointed criticism of the case.
Well, if I can say one thing about that section, this is just to be, you know, perfectly blunt about it. We held back a little in the responses with the skeptic because, to be, you know, a little nakedly honest here, had we not, I don't think he would have approved the release of his presentation. He was the only person who insisted on a presentation rather than an interview, which was fine because, you know, the skeptics need the opportunity and to make their best case against it, not just simply say it's too good to be true, it's too bad to be true, it can't be, but here's our reasons for it. And as I say, we had to hold back on a couple items that otherwise would have closed his presentation off pretty quickly.
Well, what happens with this film? What do you do with it?
We have started to distribute it straight through the website, theyfly.com website, and make it, you know, to make it available to people worldwide. I'm glad to say I've already seen people from 15 or 16 countries order the film, including Malta and Vietnam. And to me, it's a particular joy because getting the story out into the world is, of course, my own personal little, you know, project. And to see without any advertising, because my website I don't host any ads and I don't put ads out anywhere. Just, you know, I put out a lot of information as much as I can. And this show, Coast to Coast, has been enormously, wonderfully helpful to giving me an opportunity to make my case. This is like the 7th time that I've been able to be on the show, and so that has helped enormously for people who are looking for this kind of information or to check it out. So,
well, we'll give you a chance to plug the film a little bit later and go into some more detail. But let's talk about Billy Meier now.
Sure.
You know, you look at this thing, and I've read some of this stuff before, and his life it reads like a novel. I mean, Hemingway wishes he'd lived this life, even without the UFO stuff.
Yes, exactly. I've said the same thing to people, George, that, you know, if you took the UFO ET component out, the man has lived the most amazing life on the planet. He's a kind of combination of Indiana Jones meets Lawrence of Arabia, and then you throw in Star Wars. You know?
Well, give us the chronology. You know, we'll get to the UFO stuff in a minute,
sure.
Give us the chronology, the rest of it.
Well, you know, as we show in the film, and we let Meier tell